Enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. And of course, it is a brand new day. It's Thursday, the 14th of August, 2025. It's program number 1427 of the Lunchroom, and I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to our radio frequency, 101.1 FM, you can also get us at our website. It is rcistlucia.com. And we are also streaming live on our Facebook page. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And of course, please be sure to like and share that link with your friends and family. Now, of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you have the option of reaching us as well on WhatsApp. That number is 724-0008. And you can call in or you can message in if you don't want your voice on air to our WhatsApp messaging platform, and we will certainly get those messages. Again, that number is 724-0008. Well, we look back in time and we look way back to the year 1281 during Kublai Khan's second Mongol invasion of Japan. His invading Chinese fleet of 3,500 vessels disappeared in a typhoon near the Japanese coast. In the year 1842, a U.S. Army Colonel Worth declared the Second Seminole War over after nearly 7 years, and over 3,000 surviving members of the Seminole Indian nation were forcibly removed and relocated from Florida to Oklahoma, with only about 300 permitted to remain. In the year 1945, it is Victory over Japan Day, VJ Day, and the Empire of Japan surrendered unconditionally to the Allies and ending World War II. It was August the 15th in Japan and other countries, depending on the time zone. And in the year 1947, Pakistan gained its independence from the United Kingdom on this day. 1969, the British Army deployed on the streets of Northern Ireland, beginning Operation Banner. And in the year 1980, on this day, August the 14th, 17,000 workers strike in the Lenin shipyard in Gdansk, Poland, beginning what was known as the Solidarity Movement. And just before we head across to our dish of the day, we want to send out some birthday greetings to Mr. Kevin Scotland overseas. Hope he's having a very blessed day. Happy birthday to you. We also want to send out birthday greetings to Mr. Roger Celestin. Happy birthday to you, Roger. Hope you're having a great birthday. We now head across to our dish of the day.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Because if unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Did all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Lance Road in Castries, Bosses Grozile, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to the program here at Radio Caribbean International. Hope you had a very good lunch. Of course, some of you may still be enjoying yours, so I hope it's a great one indeed. Well, on our plate, first and foremost, is an announcement coming out of the United States State Department that they have imposed visa restrictions on officials of Grenada as well as that of Cuba, officials out of Cuba, as well as African countries. And well, it's a very, very interesting state of play, of course, in that regard, because this matter is one central to the Caribbean in very, very many ways. Of course, the situation with respect to Cuba and the relations with the United States has been a long-standing one. Unfortunately, it certainly has not been a very good relationship over the years. Now, of course, Cuba was one of the first places colonized ever in the quote-unquote New World. Of course, Spanish colonization of Cuba began in the 15th century with that of Christopher Columbus. And certainly Havana became central to the operations of the Spanish in the New World. It became a major port of call for a lot of operations, which would have then headed on to realize conquests of the major empires of the Americas at that time, the Mayan, the Aztec Empire of what is now today Mexico, the United States of Mexico, and in South America later on, that of the Incan Empire. And so certainly Cuba has been a central player, so to speak, in terms of the whole struggle for freedom, the struggle for liberation, the struggle against the indigenous peoples who first came to these regions, of course, and their struggle against European colonization. And of course, it became a very important colony later on as a result of growth in agriculture. It is, in fact, the largest of the Caribbean islands, with well over 10, 11 million people today. And unfortunately, I suppose to some degree for them, they have been at loggerheads with their very large, much, much larger neighbor to the north, that of the United States of America. At one point, of course, Cuba was seen as the expansion of the American, what would have then been, I guess, the American Empire. The concepts such as the Monroe Doctrine, which was set out by U.S. President Monroe in the 1820s, effectively suggesting that, you know, the United States had the rights to effectively have influence and control over the Americas. And so, of course, later on in the 19th century, around the 1890s, Cuba also was part of the Spanish-American War and was eventually lost to Spain, just like, of course, Puerto Rico. And some would have said that Cuba was almost like a client state of the United States of America for the first half of the 20th century. And U.S. influence there was very much akin to the kind of relationship that the United States had in places like Hawaii. Hawaii, however, of course, eventually became a state, I think around 1959 or thereabouts, around the very same time that Cuba, in fact, went in another direction. And that direction involved socialism, the revolution headed by Mr. Fidel Castro, effectively overthrowing the regime at the time under Batista, which was very much allied to the United States of America and U.S. interests in Cuba, which were certainly many. Havana, for example, was labeled as sort of a playground for the rich and famous for many Americans. It was effectively a kind of a lovely little European city not too far away from the U.S. mainland. And so it became a very popular place, go-to for Americans looking to vacation. Of course, a lot of that came to an end as a result of the revolution, the Cuban Revolution. And then, of course, in the throes of the Cold War between the United States and the USSR, of course, it became a point of great contention, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the fears coming out of the possibility that Cuba could become a staging point for Russian missiles, really in, one may even say, for some people, maybe even swimming distance away from the shores of the Florida Keys. And so, of course, Cuba has been ostracized. Cuba has found itself in a position since the 1960s of embargo after embargo after embargo, only getting worse, unfortunately, in the most part for Cuba. Of course, even with that sort of situation at play, even with those challenges, it has been able to put forward an agenda that in very many ways has been envious in terms of its human development efforts and the efforts that it has put in place in terms of housing, in terms of healthcare, and in terms of education. And the social programs that it has been able to do, lifting people out of illiteracy, not just to lift them out of illiteracy and to provide them with just primary education, but certainly to the point where that the average Cuban is very, very well educated, and to not just do that for its own citizens, but it has also been able to utilize its strengths in that regard to be able to educate the rest of the Caribbean, and not even just the rest of the Caribbean, also countries in Africa and South America and Latin America. So it certainly has, even though it has been faced with tremendous hardship, economic hardship, has been able to try to develop its people, and it has done so through education in particular, and it has been able to develop a core of expertise in the area of health and medical sciences and biomedical sciences, biotechnology. And it is also, of course, telling that they've been able to do so, that to the extent that they've even been able to develop their own pharmaceutical industry in Cuba. They've been able to undertake research to the point where even during COVID-19, they too were able to realize successes with the meager resources that they have, even though there were countries out there who had billions and billions and billions of dollars being thrown at major pharmaceutical companies to be able to come up with vaccines and for dealing with COVID-19. They were also able to come up with their own vaccines in Cuba in quick time. And of course, that really is a show of the ability and the strength and resilience of the Cuban people. And they have certainly been very, very generous friends to the Caribbean. Of course, if we go back to even that period of difficulty with respect to the Cold War, and we look to the New Jewel movement and the Morris Bishop during the late 70s into the 80s over in Grenada, The airport now named the Maurice Bishop International Airport at Point Saline. That airport was built with a significant amount of assistance from Cuba, as well as the USSR at that time. And so they've certainly made those types of efforts in terms of providing technical support, in terms of providing the assistance in projects as like those. But in addition to that, they've also, of course, been effectively a bedrock of the health systems in the Caribbean. And they've been able to do so through their Cuba medical program. And that program has been multifaceted. It has involved St. Lucians and people from the Caribbean heading to Cuba to receive medical treatment. The Miracle Eye program, for example, is a very notable one of those programs that they've been able to achieve. We saw the benefits of that. Many people who would have had, could potentially have ended up being blind because of glaucoma, other issues, cataracts. They were able to go to Cuba. They were able to get ophthalmological surgeries. They were able to get the kind of treatment that was really life-changing for them. And many other people have gone to Cuba for seeking out other treatments, whether it might be cancer or what have you. And in addition to that, of course, they've also buoyed the human resources within our medical care, within our medical program here for quite some time. And this is not something that this has been something that has been going on for many, many, many years in terms of Cuban doctors and nurses and and technicians as well, being present, providing the kind of specialized skills that we did not have, we don't have here in St. Lucia. And it's not to say that we're not, in some instances, producing doctors, but guess what? A lot of the doctors that may have gone over to the United States of America, persons who have gone away to study in the United States of America, they invariably aren't coming back. They get used up. They get brought into the U.S. system. And so it's a boost for the United States of America when we see that. We, in fact, even see situations of doctors who get trained in Cuba or get trained even right here in the Caribbean, and they, of course, migrate to the United States of America as well, because that market is, from a health perspective, is a very lucrative one. The United States, in fact, spends the highest proportion of any country in the world, and the proportion of GDP in healthcare is tremendous, and the pay is, of course, relatively very, very high in comparison to the rest of the world in terms of what doctors get paid in the U.S. And so, of course, a lot of doctors get caught into that desire to work in the U.S., as well as many who've gone across to be nurses, to be healthcare providers, shoring up their social care providers, senior care, homes, that sort of thing. And so the U.S. is a net beneficiary of the Caribbean when it comes to our human resources going over to the U.S. to be able to provide those skills. And we are ending up in a situation where there's a deficit. There's, of course, a tremendous attrition that we are dealing with in terms of nursing. You'd recall sometime under the Kenny Anthony administration, there was an effort to train 200 nurses in Cuba. Many of a major program, a large number of injection of nurses. That was the thinking at the time. And of course, when they came back, there were some issues we had to work out in terms of accreditation and what have you. But of course, when you think about it now, that still was not enough because of the challenges that we face currently with the demand for healthcare providers, healthcare workers around the world. And so we have certainly depended on the surplus that Cuba has been able to offer us in terms of healthcare workers right here in St. Lucia. Some of the programs that we're seeing, as I mentioned earlier on, in the Cuban Eye Care Program, for example, which operates now out of the Betty Wells Urban Polyclinic, the old Victoria Hospital, is a program that is we're clearly dependent on Cuban professionals in that way. And many of them have in fact gone on to even move out of the public health care system. Many of them are actually into private practice now. They're providing their own services. They're making their own money. Then they're making a contribution to us right here in St. Lucia in that regard. So this notion that somehow the acts of Cuba and the acts of countries in the Caribbean to be able to provide better health care for their citizens is some form of exploitation of Cuba and Cuban people is, in my view, completely inaccurate, misguided, and really unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that we are seeing this type of action at this point in time, coming out of the United States of America, because already the Cuban economy is really tinkering on the edge. It is already struggling. It is already burdened by all the impacts of the sanctions and the cumulative impacts of dealing with natural disasters and the challenges that it is facing. Not being able to kind of get the kind of support that it would have potentially have gotten maybe in the past from Russia, for example. And they certainly are finding very, very difficult times. And even within that context, they have still been generous. We just saw last week, or even this week, the announcement of students leaving St. Lucia on scholarships to go across to Cuba. And really and truly, there is a great debt of gratitude that the Caribbean community owes to Cuba, to the people of Cuba, for what they have been able to assist us with over the decades. They have been there really with us from very, very early on. They see themselves as an integral part of the Caribbean. And we certainly should see them as an integral part of the Caribbean as well. And in fact, because the other thing about it too is that there was a time when St. Lucians even used to go to work in Cuba, right? Working in the sugar estates and work in other areas in Cuba. And so we actually, there are some families who have that kind of connection with respect to Cuba. And a lot of Jamaicans, for example, would have ended up in that sort of situation. So many of them heading to into the Central American countries, the likes of Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama, Costa Rica, and then many also ending up in Cuba, working in Cuba as well. So it is unfortunate. It is a very unfortunate situation that in 2025 we are still seeing this type of approach being meted out to Cuba, but also even to the extent that countries that are getting assistance from Cuba, that their officials are now being punished, right, for effectively saying that, hey, we in fact want to, we need these programs. These programs are making a significant, they're saving lives, literally, in terms of the care that is being received in our healthcare systems. You go to OKEU right now, and chances are every third or fourth person who might be there providing assistance with you is probably from Cuba. And so it is certainly and if not from Cuba in terms of being a Cuban national, being born in Cuba, quite possibly also trained in Cuba. So we certainly really need to decide where we are at with respect to the matter of Cuba. And I think it really calls for an all of CARICOM approach. Yes, I know that the Caribbean community has spoken out of late, and they've consistently spoken at platforms such as the United Nations General Assembly regarding this situation. But this act really is effectively bullying at this point. Effectively is beyond what is reasonable, and it really comes across as being pretty petty as well, that we'll be seeing those kind of actions being taken by the U.S. in this regard. Let me just read a story, and this one is coming out with many different sources on this. I should point out that I actually tried to go on to the original post on the U.S. State Department website, and it actually says page not found. So I'm not sure what's going on with respect to that matter, but just to share one story coming out, which was a repost from Reuters, which reads as follows. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Wednesday took steps to revoke or restrict visas from some African, Caribbean, and Brazilian officials who Washington alleges have ties to a Cuban program that sends medical workers overseas. The State Department revoked the visas of Brazilian Ministry of Health official Mossad Julio Tabosa Salles and former Pan American Health Organization official Alberto Kleiman, Rubio said in a statement. Rubio did not name other officials who were affected, but said they were from Africa, Cuba, and Grenada. The Cuban government has blasted U.S. efforts to stop the medical missions, calling them a cynical excuse to go after its foreign currency earnings. Caribbean leaders have previously rejected U.S. accusations of Cuban labor exploitation. Quote, Cuba's medical cooperation will continue, Johanna Tablada, Cuba's deputy director of U.S. Affairs, said on X. Quote, Rubio's priorities speak volumes, financing Israel genocide on Palestine, torturing Cuba, going after healthcare services for those who need them most, Tablada wrote. Brazilian Health Minister Alexandre Padilla said his government will not bow to what he called unreasonable attacks on Brazil's Mais Medico, or More Doctors, program mentioned by Rubio. The program was created in 2013. Cuba's contract in it was terminated in 2018. President Donald Trump's administration in February expanded visa restrictions to target officials believed to be tied to the Cuban program, which has sent medics around the world since the Cuban Revolution in 1959. The program provides hard cash to the island nation, which is enduring its latest economic crisis. Trump has imposed a hardline policy towards communist-run Cuba and reversed former President Joe Biden's measures. Rubio labeled the Cuban program as one where, quote, medical professionals are rented by other countries at high prices and most of the revenue is kept by the Cuban authorities, end quote. He said it enriches Cuban officials and deprives Cuban people of essential medical care. Washington will act, quote, to bring an end to such forced labor, Rubio said, urging governments to pay doctors directly for their services. In announcing restrictions on Brazil and ex-PAHO officials, Rubio accused the branch of the World Health Organization covering Caribbean, Central, and South America of acting as an intermediary to implement the program without following Brazilian constitutional requirements and dodging U.S. sanctions. And that report was by Kanishka Singh and Jasper Ward in Washington for the most part. And again, issues between Brazil and the United States, of course, coming through this matter. Already we are seeing pressure being placed on the Brazilian government over the matter of a court case in the Brazilian Supreme Court involving former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who had, of course, been dubbed as a tropical Trump, you'd recall. And, of course, he has been out for some time, but is, in fact, subject to the courts at this point. And the Trump administration effectively asking the Brazilian government to back down and to stop the court case. Of course, they pointing out that there are separation of powers, similar to the United States of America, and it is not within the place of the executive and the Brazilian president to stop such matters. Now, it is, of course, a very difficult and tenuous situation with respect to these actions. And I would really hope that we can see good sense prevail when it comes to what we are seeing panning out at this point in time. Because no doubt all countries right now in that are benefiting from this Cuban medical missions, they are going to be wondering what is happening. Are we secure? What's going on? But I also think it's certainly time for Caribbean leaders to certainly speak with one voice on this matter. And of course, we have, on all sides, we have politicians in and out of government, and we also need to know where they stand on this matter of what's going to happen with these Cuban medical missions and relations with respect to Cuba and the treatment of Cuba at this point in time. So let's see what happens next on this matter. That's our dish of the day. And of course, we're overdue for our weather report. We'll take it in right now.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Grozile, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and Vieux-Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And the forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between east and east-southeast near 14 miles per hour or 22 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter at times. Weather fair skies becoming cloudy at times with a few showers at a few showers and a slight chance of thunderstorms. Forecast for the Lesser Antilles. Fair skies becoming occasionally cloudy with some showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms across parts of the region. Tropical weather outlook. A weak tropical wave is expected to cause periods of cloudiness and some showers across the northern and southern Lesser Antilles. Isolated shower activity is also possible over the southern half of the Lesser Antilles this afternoon. At 11 a.m. today, the center of Tropical Storm Erin was located near latitude 16.4 north, longitude 49.7 west, or about 771 miles or 1,240 kilometers east-north of St. Lucia. Erin is moving towards the south near 17 miles or 28 kilometers per hour. A turn to the west-northwest is expected tonight. With this motion expected to continue into the weekend. On the forecast track, the center of Erin is most likely to move near or north of the North Leeward Islands over the weekend. The northern Leeward Islands should monitor the progress of this storm. A tropical wave located over the far eastern tropical Atlantic is moving westward near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the style stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my number one store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
And welcome back to the program here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, we're going to go about 17 minutes to go before the hour of 2 o'clock. And the number to call in, it is 452-3046 if you want to tell us what's on your plate. Again, 452-3046. And we also have a WhatsApp number that is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Let's go to the phone lines at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom.
Good afternoon, Mr. George.
How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad.
Wonderful.
Right. Yeah, Cuba. We're going back to Cuba. After America used the people of Cuba, all they had there was big casino, and all over especially Florida, they take the fast boat and they go because it's 90 miles apart to gamble and run women. They call called Cuba land of the whore. Land of the whore. And when Fidel Castro was kick the ass of Batista from Cuba, America sent troops to fight the Cuban. But the Cuban was waiting. They didn't have, but they had stone, they had cutlass. Beat the ass and send them back to America. That's where, in Black Bag, the battle of
the Bay of Pigs?
Bay of Pig. Bay of Pig. The Cuban fight for their life. So not now America is just mistreating Cuba. You see, Guantanamo Bay was a place where they, for 100 years, have gone. They never give Cuba back Guantanamo Bay. And if Cuba wanted, they ask Cuba, they'll fight for it. So it's not one or two things that the American, they call them Uncle Sam with big stick on Cuba. But Cuba good for themselves. Look at how Cuba not enlighten themselves, but enlighten almost the whole Caribbean.
Yeah, and it's a very sad state of affairs for them. Even in terms of things like travel to Cuba, the significant restrictions that Americans are faced with in terms of traveling to Cuba. Right now, I think Canada is the largest market for visitors. But yet still, Canada in proportion is 40 million people, and the United States right there, and there are lots of U.S. citizens who would love, no doubt, to be able to travel there on vacation, and it's not easy to do so. And this embargo has, and you've got to ask yourself, the Cold War is almost long gone. We're seeing right now what is going on with Russia, which has now become a democratic country. Ostensibly, and they are taking actions of their own with respect to Ukraine right now and other issues, Russia and what they do to Syria and other parts of the world. The only other major player that we have right now, China, in terms of the communist world. But you don't have those types of restrictions with respect to China. You're not seeing that. There's a need for China at this point in time. Albeit, of course, we're now seeing the attempts at a trade war. But the reality is that the United States needs China, right? And this is how it's playing out, and they're not being treated with this kind of action. Why should the Cuban people still be subjected to this type of treatment? In the year 2025, we saw the Berlin Wall fall in 1989. We saw Russia becoming a democratic state in the 1990s, 1993.
East Germany and West Germany.
It's almost 30 years. Almost 30
never
years
heard a
now.
word of that anymore. East Germany and West Germany.
Look at Vietnam. We're seeing a lot of investment in Vietnam, which is also a communist country at this point in time, doing very, very well. Lots of tourism. Lots of Americans going to Vietnam.
The word was using is socialist. And everything that was good in socialists, the capitalists take it and use it for themselves. Yeah.
But my point is that, what is the real argument? Because can you really argue that it's really about communism? What is the justification for the treatment in today's reality?
In the United Nations to lift the embargo on Cuba, but America and Israel, those countries, they always vote against. What Israel know about Cuba? They don't know not a hell about Cuba. They voted down.
Yeah, and of course there is that the Cuban American influence, of course, and we do know Mr. Rubio, the Secretary of State, is has Cuban heritage and is certainly, one of the leading proponents towards this kind of action. But it really feels as if it's a game of revenge, it's a game of retribution, and it really is not justifiable in this reality at this point in time. I mean,
at this time in time, sometimes do that. A good earthquake can come out anyway and put America back to its place.
Well,
good afternoon,
let's not wish anything like that, caller. But thanks very much for your contribution. But yeah, I mean, the reality is that you've got so many countries that still are communist, in the world, and they in fact are seeing a lot of investment from the United States of America. They're seeing a lot of visitation from the United States of America. I was just trying to check out in the case of look at it. I mean, the flag of Vietnam's red with a yellow star. It's not. Cuba has a white star in its flag, but I mean, here you have a country, 90 million people. It sees 17.5 million visitors per year at this point in time, and over 750,000 of those visitors are coming from the United States of America, going to Vietnam. And there's a whole war fought in Vietnam, Americans losing their lives there. And, how can we still, at this point, realistically justify the treatment of the Cuban people in 2025? A country that has already been through so much. We've already seen the kind of hardship. We've already seen the realities. What is the real justification for this continued treatment of Cuba with these embargoes at this point in time? And it's a very unfortunate situation because even with respect to Cuba, they're being impacted by so many different issues. There, in fact, this year, they saw a 25% drop in international tourist visitors during the first half of the year, and that according to data published by the National Office of Statistics and Information, ONE. The country received 981,856 visitors between January and June, and that represented 327,800 fewer than the same period last year. Let's take in a call at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hey, Mr. George, how are you doing?
Okay, not bad, thank you.
Everybody okay?
Yes, they are. Thanks for asking.
One thing we could depend on you for them numbers, them statistics, boy. You're rolling that off your tongue. About how much tourists come, how much tourists don't come. But I don't know.
Well, the point is the point I was making is that it's okay for Americans to go to Vietnam to see him, but it's not okay for them to go to Cuba.
But I mean, what can we do about it? You say there's no way that we could justify it, but so what? How could we redress it? You have any ideas?
Well, we have to. I mean, it still comes down to the matter of diplomatic support. I mean, that's the reality.
Diplomatic support where? Against thing? You don't see all that diplomatic support for Gaza, for the Palestinians.
But you are seeing some countries.
Doing what?
We are seeing,
and we have no mechanisms. We have no way we could change these things. It's just the will of the stronger. America ruling. If they say that, that's what they're doing. If they choose to deal more better with Vietnam and put the squeeze on Cuba. So what? What we must do this. We must do that. What can we do?
So you say that there's in this reality,
for commentators to sit down and say we must do. We should. It should be better. You have no justifiable reason. We know all these things already. But what can we do, or what will we? To what extent will we go to jeopardize our own standing with America? That's the key thing.
But that's the point. That's the question I was asking earlier on,
Yeah.
with respect to
No,
the
but
leaders
tell us
that we have.
Tell us that. I mean, you have all the numbers at the tip of your tongue. Tell us that. You're supposed to have some ready solutions, my brother.
Yeah, but Caller, but of course you have to look. We don't have any military strength. We don't have any large economies to say that hey, we're going to set any embargoes or reciprocal embargoes. That's not what we have, right? We know that that's not what we have. What do we have? Ability to speak, I suppose. That's the only thing that we really do have. The ability to lend our voices and our vote at the levels that exist, whether it's the UN being the principal one in that matter.
We have a lot of songs to sing, boy. If it's that, boy, learn our voice. We better start learning to sing because we get tired of croaking and talking. Because let me tell you, unless we face the reality of how this world is being run and find within that context and say, well, what we're going to do is going to take what it needs. It's going to take, we don't have leaders ready to take this stance. And not only that, the leaders we don't have populations that are ready to endure the hardships that will come with taking the particular stand that we need to take. So I don't know. We need to talk about how we could accept maybe that word there is a golden word.
No, but Caller, it's a very clear situation now.
Pragmatic.
It's a very clear situation. This thing is having impacts, or it could have potential impacts on us, on our healthcare system. Right? What happens? What would happen to us if, to say, tomorrow we get an edict from the United States? You have to, stop hiring all Cuban nationals.
Right.
What do you do?
Like you go there,
what do you do? So you say you
them, all right?
What's that?
We're not listening to them. We're not taking them on because we're benefiting too much. Our health system go feel too much pressure. Okay, so we're standing with Cuba. Okay, but it's not going to end there. Rubio is going to end it there. Rubio will they issue an advisory. No, if they issue an advisory, no American citizens should come visit St. Lucia. And they're boasting how we're building new hotels and so on. So, so that's what I'm saying, if you're willing to take that kind of action, you have to get ready for stronger action, and more sacrifice, my brother. It's not as if saying, well, I ain't taking down America. I still live. And then, especially if they know they go controlling the levers of your economy.
Right.
You understand? They will find a way, let's say, advisory. Any U.S. citizen that is known to have been visit St. Lucia will be deemed a criminal or whatever against the of foreign policy of
a travel ban, basically. You want to say this?
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Understand? So, how now you'll hear people start saying, but they know, you see, because the reason why that Cuba thing is so important, because you see in Scalix, among the so-called enlightened elite of late, the opposition have recruited.
Okay.
There's a member there who actually is trying to bring on and saying, well, we're in danger. We are promoting communism, as
Right.
But you know where I'm coming from.
Yes, of course.
And what he goes to there, we address each other as comrade. But he will not talk about the relationship with Cuba. But he's going there indirectly because, you know what I'm saying? We're going socialist and we must eliminate that rhetoric. Stop using that, That's dirty for Rubio and them. That's a dirty word, comrade and You know, all these things there.
You know, the irony is that St. Lucia doesn't have a communist party, but there are communist parties in France.
But that
There are
doesn't
communist
matter.
parties
That
in,
doesn't matter.
Germany, and there are communist parties. And so I know it doesn't matter, but I'm just making the point that, you know, this idea that we're trying to promote is so laughable.
Because you know, we know what does that show us? That perhaps if that thing is in government, that party is in government, they wouldn't hesitate, you know, colleagues, to cut ties with Cuba.
And that's what I asked.
You know,
And that's what I asked, Caller.
you know how they'll justify
where
to
do
save
these?
our tourist industry, no?
Well, they'll probably justify a lot of things. To justify it by saying yes, maybe
let's
they
face
need
the
to
reality.
placate the United States of
You and
America.
your party, governing party, how do they deal with that? That kind of issue. Maybe that's a hot one to deal with all now. So.
No, it's an important one.
The government of communist and socialist inclinations, because they're not really showing out America that out and out they're against Cuba. You know what I mean? Not because that's just thing, you know, out and out escape to say is because they're using comrade and thing. But it's real Cuba they're talking of. And this is where they're going to go. They're going to marginalize Cuba. They're going to vote for Cuba, to support for Cuba, you know. Our foreign policy will show what will be prescribed to serve the interests of Rubio and Trump, you know. So that, you know, we could guarantee you know, maybe we wouldn't get so much tariffs on our goods, and also there wouldn't be any advisory ban.
And ironically enough, the other approach that was being utilized recently, we saw the visit from Nigerian president, and the whole matter of Nigerian medical professionals also coming to the Caribbean, which they have done in the past. I think just recently Jamaica just brought in some. And that could potentially be one of the areas where you need to strengthen as well. See where can you get other health professionals while you try to build up your own cadre.
Yeah,
and
this is what we are seeing. The current government is.
But they seem to have been against the whole idea of strengthening relations with Nigeria as well. So the big question.
They say that we're promoting racism.
So the big question is.
That's Africa talk.
So the big question is, how are you then going to address the matter of healthcare? Because you cannot have a healthcare system without, in fact, having healthcare professionals to work in the system.
You know.
So
the reality of this thing is that, you know, if they tell you, well, this stop that flirtation with African countries, you want thing? Well, all right, okay. You know, you see, and America can do that. We so intricately, our development, our economy is so intricately linked to the American, you know, to America, that you see, if pragmatism has to rule the day, we just put in our tail between our leg and play it cool. Say nothing, see no evil, hear no evil, and go with the flow. You understand?
Well, caller, let's not forget.
That's the kind of government we would want.
Let's not forget that at one.
Who knows? That's what the people might decide. That's the kind of government they want. So, but it's only time.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Well, let's not forget too. At one point in time, well, even in the Caribbean right now, there are people who are fine with. We had the line sometimes, boy, we wish we remained with France, right? We wish we were French still, right? Because we look at the Martinique and Guadeloupe and what we perceive to be development. But there was
that we should be tackling.
But on the other side,
the whole idea of getting out of CARICOM, stop dealing with Africa so intimately. Don't think Cuba.
Yeah.
Let go Cuba. All these things, you could see how...
You can see definitely where the direction of the foreign policy is heading.
Yeah, you could see it there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right?
All right, caller. Thanks very much for that contribution.
I'd like you to talk about these things more instead of telling us, giving us...
you don't like the figures. It's okay. All right, caller.
Numbers.
Have a good one. And this is a math guy, math degree. But anyways, yes, so we're going to have to continue the program tomorrow, and we hope that you'll be able to join us for that. And, of course, we'll be back again, God willing, for tomorrow for Friday. I'm your host, Alex Shaw Jr., saying goodbye.